and we must resist this wholeheartedly. If we don't resist it wholeheartedly, we're basically repeating what we for years blamed the German people for having accepted Hitler and the concentration camps, the whole Holocaust. We're finding ourselves in that same position now. Are we going to accept this, or are we going to fight it?
Well, John, that's my next point, is that if you really study history, which you're a learned man, I'm sure you know about this, it's now been declassified and on record. New York and British banks funded Hitler early on, thought he was a great guy because they wanted fascism, and then later, once he went totally wild, turned against him. And so, again, it's these banking cartels always funding every side, playing nations off against each other, funding both sides of the war, and then, in the end, coming out on top with all the power. I mean, this is the same trick they play over and over again. Take what the banks did after World War I with the Versailles sanctions on Germany, keeping them in a depression. That was the atmosphere that allowed the rise of Hitler. That's the atmosphere that keeps the third world under dictatorships today. And you read the Royal Commission on Population 44 to 49, put out with the British government, they cold-bloodedly admit they're doing all of this to create destabilization so they can control things. I mean, this is really order out of chaos.
Yeah, and here we go again. And not only that, Alex, but when I went to business school back in the 60s, I had professors that would tell me, we'll never have another Great Depression because we've set rules and regulations in place that will not allow that to happen again. And I think that was true at the time. Glass-Steagall was, one of the preeminent acts, and regulations against usurious interest rates. But since that time, since I graduated from college, beginning in the 80s under Reagan and continuing through Clinton and everybody else, we continually hacked away at those rules. So we reached the point where there was no more Glass-Steagall that separated commercial banks from investment banks and insurance companies, and the usury laws were all done away with. So today there's some of these payday check people are charging as much as 800% interest rates, and banks and credit cards are charging in the 30s. That's outrageous. And I was told when I was in business school that would never happen again, and that protected us from another depression. And I think it probably did. Mm-hmm. But we whittled away at all these things. We made icons and heroes out of people like Donald Trump and Jack Welch of GE, who bragged about the fact they fired people, and at the same time gave themselves huge increases in salaries. Welch got rid of roughly a quarter of his employees at GE and gave himself huge bonuses. And Trump fires people on TV and makes a big scene out of it. These became our icons, our heroes. And we got rid of regulation, and we took on huge, huge amounts of debt. And we, the consumer, turned a blind eye to the
Well, isn't this, exactly, but isn't this gladiatorial where they show people being fired and we all kind of join in there in the arena? But next week, we're going to be in the arena, and our friends are going to be laughing at us in the cheap seats. To interrupt you, because in the limited time, and you're making so many great points, I want to go back here to how they recruited you. Because they're recruiting now in the high schools, the colleges, for domestic spies and running a lot of the same operations. I haven't been involved in this at the level you've been in, but just being a talk show host, back when I was only on a few radio stations, back in like 97, 98, I got approached by big corporate heads openly saying, yeah, the New World Order's real. You might as well just go ahead and join us. You'll get millions of dollars. Come on, the loser public doesn't want your help. Kind of that mindset of you're part of the elite too. And of course, I knew that wasn't the case. They were just trying to sell me. And then since then, I've had them try to send women after me with handlers. I've been in New York and had literal Russian spies there trying to put, number 10 blondes on me. And it's not that Alex Jones is special. It's that there are really spies and intelligence people going all over the place, operating all the time. And the general public just doesn't know this. They don't understand this. Can you explain to them how big these armies of not just CIA and NSA and Defense Intelligence, but all the allied corporate groups that are operating? Can you explain, because you were inside that, how big this really is?
Well, as you found out, it's a very seductive system, and they figure out what your weakness is, which I think it sounds to me, Alex, like you got a weakness for number 10 blondes.
But it didn't work. My point is it didn't work.
Yeah, but someplace along the line, they identify that as a potential weakness for you, and you've overcome it Good for you. Good for you. But I mean, that's true. They hone in on these things. I talk in the last book I did, not the one that's coming out, but the one right after Confessions, called Secret History of the American Empire, about this Brazilian woman when I was in Brazil who posed as a journalist, but what she was really doing was offering great sex to me if I came around. I mean, that's typical, and there's so many ways of bringing you around and then blackmailing you, or offering big bribes. I talk in the books about how I took a pretty big bribe at one time of money because my life was being threatened, not to write books. Yes, this happens. It happens all the time. It's a big part of the system. And Alex, you are important. That's why they're coming after you. You're reaching people. Anybody who's reaching people is important because they recognize that public opinion is where it's all at. You know what? The marketplace is democratic if we choose to make it such. This is the good news, that these big corporations are dependent on us. They cannot exist if we don't buy their goods and services, or if our tax money doesn't buy their goods and services. And we've won so many battles in the past. We got rid of apartheid in South Africa, basically through the marketplace. We got corporations to clean up terribly polluted rivers in this country and get rid of aerosol cans that were destroying the ozone layer, open their doors wider to women and minorities, get rid of trans fats in food, and on, because just a few of us, if a small number of us never again buys from Nike, and we write a lot, and every one of us writes an email to Nike and says, we're not buying from you because you have sweatshops. And we buy from Patagonia and send them an email and say, we are buying from you because you don't have sweatshops. Then Nike's either going to have to fold or turn its sweatshops into legitimate factories.
Well, here's another example, John, and you're right. 10 years ago, I'd go grocery shopping and couldn't find organic food. Now, because the people demanded it, it created a market. Now about half the food in Austin stores is organic, and it's starting to push out the other, bad GMO stuff. So the government's trying to pass a law so they can deceptively label things. But again, another example of if we just vote with our dollars and believe we have power, there's nothing we can't change. We've just got to take our destiny. Exactly. We have tremendous power in that regard. Europe has essentially gotten rid of GMOs. Even the big companies that use GMO products in this country, like Kellogg and Kraft and companies like that, are taken out of the things they're selling in Europe because Europe demanded it. We could do the same thing. Yes, there will be resistance. And yes, the government will try to deceive us, but we don't need to let that happen. We really have tremendous power. What we need to do is exercise it more and realize that our vote in the marketplace is extremely important. I'm not going to say it's more important or less important than our vote in the polling booth, but it's just as important. It's important. They're both important. We need to vote every time we shop or choose not to shop, and we need to let those companies know why we're not buying from them or why we are buying from them, and that will turn things around. Exactly. There's more of us than there are the elite. I mean, I had Rothkopf on, again, former head of the Kissinger Group, who wrote this book, Superclass, and there he was in the Washington Post bragging, we're setting up world government of, for, and by the elites. And I had him on, and I said, why'd you come on? Oh, we know who you are. We just want to, come on the show and let everybody know that, we're doing this for your own good. But he admitted there's 6,000 superclass in the world, and if we didn't go along with them, there's no way they could get away with this. Final segment with John Perkins straight ahead. Maybe I'll twist his arm to do maybe a segment more or so we can take more calls. You can get his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins. Stay with us.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Okay, we got Salem in Brazil, Julio in Illinois, Joe in Texas, and others for our guest, John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. New book, Hoodwinked, is the working title, coming out in November. The book's basically done. He's just doing some footnotes and polishing it up. Great writer. And I'm going to carry this one in our Infowars.com bookstore. I meant to carry Confessions of an Economic Hitman and just didn't do it a few years ago when it came out because we got so busy. Speaking of books and videos that we carry that expose this stuff, we are carrying America Freedom to Fascism, the full director's cut at Infowars.com, and the Aaron Russo exclusive final interview he did before he died. That is now available with added commentary and updates from myself at Infowars.com. Terror Storm, Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. These are all great films to get at Infowars.com and show to your friends and family. Every person you wake up is one step closer to us beating these bankers. They wouldn't be trying to silence free speech, intimidate people, carry out hits all over the third world if this wasn't the case. Before we take a few calls from Brazil and other places, John Perkins, one area we didn't get into today, but you've got to go in about 10 minutes, is what the jackals do, what the hitmen do. You were the guy trying to buy them off. You were the slick corporate operator. Explain what came next if folks didn't go along.
Well, yeah, for example, in Ecuador with Jaime Roldos and in Panama with Omar Torrijos, I couldn't bring those guys around. They wouldn't take these big loans. They wouldn't corrupt themselves in their country. And so I was very aware that there would be tremendous pressure placed upon them. And in some cases, we overthrow governments like we did with Mossadegh in Iran and with Arbenz in Guatemala. In other places, we assassinate the leaders, as we did with Allende in Chile, and that's what happened to both Roldos of Ecuador and Torrijos of Panama, because I couldn't bring them around. And I like both of these men immensely. I was particularly close to Torrijos. Really, really liked the guy. They were both assassinated.
Is that what started waking you up, is that you knew these guys really cared about their people, whether you agree with their politics or not, and you were seeing them, 1 week you're having drinks with them, and a week later they're dead?